Welcome to our show, the Hong Kong Brief. Today, we have a mix of financial news, cultural controversies, and sporting ambitions to discuss. First off, Hong Kong stocks have taken a nosedive, with the Hang Seng Index dropping by 1.3% and Lenovo's convertible bond sale causing quite a stir in the market. Investors are cautious ahead of key economic data releases, and the Chinese yuan has hit a 6-month low against the US dollar. Stay tuned for more financial insights and what this means for your investments. Next up, Hong Kong director Kiwi Chow Kun Wai is making headlines for criticizing the self-censorship culture in the city. His romance drama Beyond the Dream was abruptly cancelled by a cinema chain, and Chow suspects it has more to do with the film's popular actor than the content itself. We'll delve into how this reflects broader issues of censorship and artistic freedom in Hong Kong. Lastly, let's switch gears to sports. Hong Kong's cricket authorities are making big moves by forging partnerships with mainland China. They're aiming to include cricket in China's national games and possibly even the Chinese Super League. This collaboration could boost the sport's infrastructure and participation levels significantly. Please stay tuned for detailed coverage of these stories and more. Keep watching for the full scoop. South China Morning Post reports that Hong Kong stocks experienced their most significant drop in a week as investors cashed in on profits from a rally that had lifted the benchmark by over 20% since late January. The Hang Seng Index fell by 1.3% to 18,586.07, while the Hang Seng Tech Index dropped 1.6%. The Shanghai Composite Index, however, rose by 0.4%. Investors are now closely watching China's efforts to revive the property market, with major cities like Guangzhou and Shenzhen easing home purchase curbs. A Bloomberg gauge of Chinese property stocks in Hong Kong has surged 35% over the past 4 months, but sentiment took a hit as the onshore yuan fell to a 6-month low. Lenovo Group plummeted 4.1% after selling $2 billion of convertible bonds to Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund. Other tech giants like Meituan and Alibaba also saw declines. Investors are cautious ahead of upcoming economic data from China and the US, with China's manufacturing PMI and US personal consumption expenditure data expected to provide more insights into economic trends. In another report from the South China Morning Post, Kiwi Chow Kun Wai, a Hong Kong director known for his documentary on the 2019 anti-government protests, criticized self-censorship after MCL Cinemas cancelled the rescreening of his romance drama Beyond the Dream without explanation. The film, which became the highest-grossing domestic film in Hong Kong in 2020, was initially set for special showings in June. Chow speculated that the cancellation was due to the resurgence in popularity of actor Terence Lau Chun-him, who starred in both Beyond the Dream and the recent blockbuster Twilight of the Warriors, Walden. Chow has faced similar challenges since releasing his 2021 documentary Revolution of Our Times, which was not shown locally due to concerns over the Beijing-imposed national security law. Despite the film's international success and awards, Chow chose not to screen it in Hong Kong to protect his team and interviewees. MCL declined to comment on the cancellation, and Chow expressed sadness over the extent of self-censorship in Hong Kong, calling it absurd. The Toronto Star details the severe impact of Beijing's national security law on Hong Kong's activists, focusing on Chan Ping and her husband Leung Kwok Kung, one of 47 activists prosecuted in the largest national security law case. Leung, charged with conspiracy to commit subversion, faces a possible life sentence. Chan, who chairs the League of Social Democrats, remains pessimistic about the outcome but hopes some might be acquitted. The couple's activism dates back to the 1970s, and their bond deepened during the 2005 protests. The 2014 Umbrella Movement saw a peak in activism, but subsequent crackdowns, including the 2020 national security law, have stifled pro-democracy efforts. Ventus Lau, another activist, pleaded guilty in the subversion case related to the 2020 primary election. His girlfriend, Amelia Wong, supports his activism and remains hopeful despite the grim outlook. The national security law has led to mass arrests, media shutdowns, and the dissolution of civil society groups. Despite the challenges, Chan and Wong continue to support their partners and uphold their activism, finding meaning in persistence even as they face an uncertain future. South China Morning Post: Hong Kong cricket officials are strengthening ties with mainland China, aiming for inclusion in the national games, while maintaining the city's sporting autonomy. Cricket Hong Kong, China, CHKC, has signed a memorandum with the Shandong Small Ball Sports Federation and is collaborating with cricket associations in major Chinese cities. Chairman Burji Shroff emphasized that this partnership could lead to infrastructure development and increased participation in cricket. The upcoming 2028 Olympic Games in Los Angeles is also a motivating factor, as it is expected to boost global interest in cricket. Despite concerns, Shroff assured that Hong Kong's status as a separate cricket entity remains intact. He also expressed openness to the idea of a Hong Kong team in a potential Chinese Super League. Shroff's long-term goals include improving cricket facilities in Hong Kong and elevating the men's and women's teams' global rankings. He acknowledged recent underperformance but highlighted ongoing improvements and the importance of mentoring young players to retain talent within the cricket system. Nikkei Asia: the Chinese yuan has fallen to a 6-month low against the dollar, trading at 7.2483 on the mainland. This decline underscores the contrasting monetary policies between China and the United States. The People's Bank of China, PBOC, has adjusted its reference rate to its lowest level since January, allowing the yuan to weaken within a controlled trading band. The offshore yuan, not bound by this band, also fell to 7.2667 against the dollar. Analysts attribute this downward pressure to the dollar's strength and the differing approaches of the PBOC and the U.S. Federal Reserve. While the Fed maintains high interest rates to combat inflation, the PBOC is focused on stimulating China's economy, including measures to support the housing market. Some analysts predict further easing by the PBOC, such as cutting the reserve requirement ratio. The yuan's depreciation is expected to persist unless the U.S. adopts a more dovish monetary stance. South China Morning Post: Hong Kong is facing a critical waste disposal crisis, exacerbated by years of procrastination and ineffective solutions. The city's reliance on a single large incinerator and waste reduction has failed to meet targets set in the 2013 Blueprint for Sustainable Resource Use. The Integrated Waste Management Action Group had proposed a Plan B, emphasizing minimal landfill use, regional waste management facilities, and high-capacity mechanical sorting plants. Despite these suggestions, the government stuck to its original plan, leading to inadequate progress. The waste charging scheme trial revealed minimal reductions in waste disposal, particularly in shopping centers and residential buildings. With landfills nearing capacity by 2026, urgent action is needed. The government has delayed the full implementation of the waste charging scheme and is distributing free garbage bags to public rental flats, counteracting the intended deterrent effect. To address this looming crisis, Hong Kong must reconsider high-capacity mechanical sorting and recycling methods used elsewhere, possibly revisiting the 2013 Plan B. South China Morning Post: developers of Hong Kong's green building standards have launched a global certification standard to promote sustainability, aiming to strengthen the city's green construction credentials globally. The Building Environmental Assessment Method Plus, BEAM Plus, for existing buildings, developed by the Hong Kong Green Building Council, HKGBC, and BEAM Society, targets regions from the Greater Bay Area to Southeast Asia and Europe. Chung Tin-chung, chairman of HKGBC, emphasized that BEAM Plus could fill the gap in regions lacking comprehensive green building certification standards, thus propelling global sustainable development. Emissions from building-related operations contribute to about 30% of global carbon emissions, highlighting the importance of green building management in achieving carbon neutrality. The global version of Beam Plus offers flexibility in adopting local standards for various categories like water efficiency and indoor air quality. Over 2,500 Beam Plus projects are registered in Hong Kong, with more than 1,800 certified. HKGBC and Beam Society have signed memorandums of understanding with 13 developers and property management companies to deploy the certification tool outside Hong Kong. Notable companies include China Merchants, Shiko Holdings, and Swire Properties. The organizations plan to launch a global certification for new buildings by the first half of 2025. South China Morning Post. During his visit to the United States, Hong Kong's Financial Secretary Paul Chan Imopa promoted the city as more entrepreneurial, open, and diverse than Singapore. Speaking to U.S. business leaders, Chan emphasized Hong Kong's advantages for companies aiming to expand into mainland China and North Asia markets. He assured that the one country, two systems principle was still effective despite recent national security law enactments. Highlighting Hong Kong's connectivity, Chan noted that the city allows travelers to reach over half of the world's population within 5 hours of flight time. He also touted the strengths of Hong Kong's stock market, with a market capitalization significantly higher than Singapore's. The event in San Francisco was co-organized by the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office and the Bay Area Council, with around 100 representatives from California-based businesses attending. The visit included the signing of a memorandum of understanding between InvestHK and the Bay Area Council to promote joint investment, focusing on green finance and sustainable development. The delegation aimed to boost business opportunities in the Greater Bay Area, a plan by Beijing to transform Hong Kong, Macau, and 9 Guangdong cities into a high-tech economic powerhouse by 2025. South China Morning Post. Western travelers, such as Americans Kayla and Aaron Lucas, are avoiding Hong Kong due to fears of political instability, posing challenges to the city's tourism strategy. Despite their interest in Hong Kong's history, the couple opted out of visiting due to apprehensions about the political situation. Since the lifting of COVID-19 restrictions, North American and European tourists have been slow to return, with visitor numbers significantly lower than in 2019. Experts attribute this to Hong Kong's image in relation to its politics and international relations. For instance, the U.S. issued a Level 2 travel alert for Hong Kong, advising increased caution due to the national security law. Industry insiders argue that while long-haul travelers generally take more time to return, the situation in Singapore, which has seen a full recovery in visitor numbers, suggests other factors at play. Clement Kwok Kingman, CEO of Hong Kong and Shanghai Hotels, pointed to negative media coverage and a lack of confidence in Hong Kong. Efforts to attract tourists include high-level delegations and partnerships with luxury travel brands. However, the city faces an uphill task in its charm offensive, with travel warnings from several Western countries and the impact of the pandemic on business confidence. Veteran lawmaker Jeffrey Lam Kin Fung remains optimistic, citing Hong Kong's access to the Greater Bay Area and the development of the northern metropolis as key advantages. South China Morning Post reports that nearly 90% of high-net-worth investors in Hong Kong are planning to increase their investments in alternative assets like private equity, private debt, hedge funds, and infrastructure. This shift comes after traditional investments in stocks and real estate have underperformed in recent years. The digital wealth advisor Endowus revealed that the U.S. Federal Reserve's interest rate hikes have made bonds more attractive again, but investors are still keen on diversifying their portfolios with private market opportunities. The Hong Kong stock market's significant decline, exacerbated by the pandemic, geopolitical tensions, and China's economic instability, has driven investors to seek more stable returns. Diversification is now seen as essential in a world marked by disinflation, geopolitical instability, and technological disruption. For instance, Raffles Family Office strategically allocates up to 10% of its discretionary portfolios towards private credit investments and is exploring private equity opportunities in sectors like AI and renewable energy. However, concerns about lockup periods and liquidity in private markets remain, prompting a preference for semi-liquid open-ended funds among wealthy investors. In another piece by South China Morning Post, the whimsical gadgets from the long-running Japanese manga and anime series Doraemon have sparked imaginations about how such inventions could enhance real life. The series, which has charmed audiences since 1970, features a blue robot cat with a 4D pouch filled with gadgets like the Anywhere door, which allows instant travel between any two locations, and the Memory Bread, which helps users memorize information. The recent exhibition of Doraemon figures in Hong Kong has reignited interest in these fantastical inventions. Food-related gadgets from the series, such as the gourmet tablecloth that conjures any dish or the super gourmet spice that makes any food irresistible, highlight the creative potential of such tools. In real life, chefs and food writers dream of gadgets like a multiple recorder to streamline recipe documentation or an enhanced Anywhere door for instant travel to hard-to-book restaurants. These imaginative ideas reflect a desire for convenience and efficiency in everyday tasks, inspired by Doraemon's playful yet practical inventions. In a different report by South China Morning Post, several major cryptocurrency exchanges with ties to mainland China have withdrawn their applications for a virtual asset trading platform (VATP) license in Hong Kong due to stringent regulatory requirements and the inability to serve mainland investors. Firms like OKX, Date.io, KuCoin, Binance, and HTX have pulled out of the city's new regulatory regime, which mandates that exchanges must be licensed to operate. The Securities and Futures Commission, SFC, has imposed strict rules, including preventing mainland Chinese residents from accessing their services, which has dampened enthusiasm for operating in Hong Kong. The SFC's rigorous demands and the prohibition on serving mainland customers have led to 7 out of 24 original applicants withdrawing their applications. Some industry insiders believe that the SFC may have directly instructed certain exchanges to withdraw. Only 2 exchanges, Hashkey Exchange and OSL, have been approved to serve retail investors in Hong Kong. The withdrawals are seen as a reflection of the SFC's high regulatory standards and the type of crypto hub Hong Kong aims to become. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong is actively pursuing the integration of traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, with Western medicine in its healthcare system, despite facing regulatory and research challenges. At the Asia Summit on Global Health, experts emphasized TCM's growing global recognition and its potential benefits in treating various diseases. Hong Kong's first Chinese medicine hospital, scheduled to open in 2025, aims to combine TCM and Western medicine services. The hospital will initially offer outpatient treatments, expanding to inpatient services by 2027. Dr. Arthur Lau Chunwing, the hospital's deputy chief executive, highlighted the need for evidence-based standards and a database to monitor drug interactions. The integration of TCM and Western medicine could enhance patient care, but it requires overcoming cultural and regulatory hurdles. Hong Kong's universities are nurturing TCM talent, and the city is exploring plans to establish a school combining both medical practices. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong has seen a surge in scams involving fraudsters posing as online customer service staff, resulting in losses of about 190 million Hong Kong dollars since January. Chief Inspector Wan Puyi from the Anti-Deception Coordination Center reported 583 cases up to mid-May, with the largest single loss being 4.16 million Hong Kong dollars. The scammers deceive victims by claiming they mistakenly purchased a chargeable service and coercing them into transferring funds. Victims, ranging from 16 to 87 years old, have lost amounts from 1,000 Hong Kong dollars to 4.16 million Hong Kong dollars. A 69-year-old man, identified as Ma, lost 440,000 Hong Kong dollars after being tricked into transferring money to a virtual bank account. The police have arrested some individuals linked to the scams and are urging the public to verify the identity of callers and avoid transferring money based on unverified claims. Chan Chikin from Tmall Taobao World condemned the fraudulent activities and emphasized that legitimate transactions should only be conducted through official channels. South China Morning Post. China aims to establish national standards for corporate sustainability disclosure by 2030 to enhance economic sustainability and address climate change. The Ministry of Finance has released draft guidelines for public opinion, targeting the introduction of basic regulations by 2027 and a nationwide standard by 2030. The guidelines will initially apply to listed companies, gradually expanding to privately owned enterprises and small and medium-sized firms. The draft aligns with global benchmarks set by the International Sustainability Standards Board while being tailored to China's context. By 2026, about 400 listed companies on the Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen stock exchanges must publish sustainability reports. These guidelines aim to improve transparency, helping financial institutions assess climate-related risks. The number of sustainability funds in China has tripled since 2020, reflecting growing interest in ESG investments. Hong Kong, with its extensive experience in ESG advisory services, is well positioned to support the adoption of these standards in China. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.